Hello and welcome to Gaming with Hib. Today we are going to be cleaning and kind of restoring a old game cartridge. Now, if you enjoy classic games, some of these games are 30, 35, 40 years old, and depending on the previous owners, may not always be in the best of shape. So we are going to be taking an old cartridge that I had previously cleaned, show you how I cleaned that cartridge, and then restoring the outside just a little bit to make it look a little bit more new. The cartridge that we will be refurbishing today is Batman the video game for the NES. Now, you will see that the previous owner was very proud of their purchase. They decided to write their name on there so that nobody would take it. You'll see some sticker residue, probably from an old price tag from when it was resold right there. There are some general scuffs and things like that that we will not be able to take care of, but I think we can get this looking a little bit better than it does now. In order to open any of these old cartridges, the first thing you will actually need is a special type of screwdriver. This is called a game bit security screwdriver. On the back of this cartridge, you will notice that there are 3 different screw points, and these are opened with this game bit screwdriver. Now, there's actually 2 different size of game bits. The first one that I have there is a 3.8 millimeter. This one right here is a 4.5 millimeter. Difference between them is obviously the size and what they're used for. This is used almost exclusively with Nintendo games, NES, SNES, and N64 games, where this one is used to open up old Nintendo consoles, namely the Super Nintendo and the N64, and Genesis games would actually use this same one. They are keyed so that they can only open those game bits, and we will be using this one to open up this cartridge. Now, you'll run into 2 different types of NES cartridges. I only have one here with me right now. This is a 3-bit style that uses these security bits. There's also a 5-screw style that Nintendo used at first that just used normal Phillips heads. With those Phillips heads, you don't need a special screwdriver, obviously. But for this one, you do. So, 3 different screws. Pops out very easily once you have the correct tool. Do not try to open this with anything other than a game bit, because there is a very good chance that you will just end up damaging your cartridge. And while many of the games are inexpensive to purchase, they're not making any more of them. So try to maintain them as much as possible. Now, once all of these screws are out, there is a small tab on top. Don't have to take the tab off, but it opens with those tabs. And this is the actual PCB of the cartridge. Now, this one has previously been cleaned before, but just going over the cartridge a little bit, you'll see these small metal contacts that are on the bottom of the cartridge. That is the part that you actually want to clean, front and back as well. So when you go to clean the PCB, the main tool you want in your arsenal is isopropyl alcohol. This I purchased off Amazon. You'll see the lovely Amazon Basics tag, but it is 99%, and that is what you want. You want something that is almost pure isopropyl alcohol with as much of that and as little of water as possible. Too much water just increases the risk of damaging your electronic components. You can go to your local drugstore to buy IPA. However, it is difficult, in my region at least, to find the 99% on drugstore shelves, which is why I went to Amazon. This was fairly inexpensive. In order to use this, you can either just take it and use it directly from the bottle, or you can be a little bit extra like I am and get this. I believe this is actually meant for beauticians and manicurists, but it works wonderfully for my needs, where there's just a small pump on top, and the small pump allows you to get out a small amount of alcohol with little to no issue. So, by just pumping it a few times, you can saturate a Q-tip in the solution, and after that, it's as easy as cleaning the contacts. Now, you do need a small bit of force in order to start cleaning them, and this is just the first step. Sometimes this is all you need. However, that's not always the case. Now, as I said before, this one was previously cleaned, so I don't expect there to be very much on there at all, and there isn't, because I purchased this game originally for a game club and made sure that it worked beforehand. Another tool that you can use, besides just pure IPA, is another version of pure IPA made by a company called 1UP. This is a 1UP card. These are nice because you can actually clean the cartridges without having to open it up. If you just need to give a quick clean to something, you'll see there's two sides, a fluid side and a dry side. You saturate this side in the IPA, and then once it is scrubbed, you can buff it and dry it with this other side. And when you buy it, it actually comes in a kit that comes with its own small bottle of IPA. This can just be refilled, so you can always use these for a quick clean. And again, they're made to be skinny, so it can actually go inside of the cartridges. And this will work in any standard cartridge like the ones that we have here. Now, sometimes simple IPA is not going to work. When that is the case, you want to pull out the big guns. And this was actually recommended by a YouTuber named John Riggs, and it has been essential in restoring some of my old games. And that is Bright Boy. This is a metal polish solution that is similar to a product like Brasso, but Brasso can actually take and remove metal from the things that you're trying to clean, where this is just a simple polisher. This gets off things I didn't even know were on the cartridge and has revived so many of my old cartridges. It is not funny. This is fairly expensive for what it is. I believe this bottle cost me about $20 direct off Amazon, again because no local stores seem to sell it. It is just a screw top. Usually I put this in another small container or just carefully tip it to get a little bit on the Q-tip. But you want to remove as much of this from the contact once you use it. So you'd use this on the actual cartridge itself. Then once you have removed as much as you can using another Q-tip, go over it again with the same IPA. Clean, clean, clean. You want this to be completely removed of that Bright Boy. However, once you are done with that, you are left with a cartridge that should work good as new. This one, again, is in fairly good shape overall. And we will actually test that out in a few moments. But first, on to the next part, refurbishing the outside of the case. Now, many people wouldn't care that this game looks like it was released in the late 80s or early 90s. However, I am not only a gamer, I am a collector. I like things to remain in as good of condition as possible. So, IPA works wonders for many things, including this Sharpie on here. So, I'm going to use the same Q-tip that I was using before because it is not really dirty. I'm going to saturate this, and I'm going to just go over this Nintendo logo covered in this person's S. And as you can see, it is coming right off. These labels are actually very, very durable. They're coated in, I'm not sure what, a wax, some kind of protective material that really does help. And it doesn't mind if it gets a little bit wet. It doesn't mind if it gets a little bit of moisture on it, especially something like IPA that evaporates so quickly. And with very minimal amount of work, you will see that much of that Sharpie that has probably been on there for 20 or 30 years is now gone. Now, does that increase the value of the game at all? No, not at all. But it does just make it a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. Another tip of the trade, or another tool of the trade, is just paper towel. Trying to get as much of that IPA off as possible. I believe that is an improvement to what it was before. Now, as for this, you can use IPA for this. I will start with IPA, but there is a better tool for that as well. IPA will remove some sticker residue. As you can see, just all of the gunk and the residue that is coming off with that. And sometimes Q-tip isn't enough. Feel free to use paper towel. Same thing. Get a little bit moist. And nothing is going to beat good old-fashioned elbow grease. That actually worked pretty well. But I will still show you the other tool that I like to use, which you have to be careful with. Not careful because you're going to hurt yourself, but because you could damage your cartridge. Yeah, that's looking pretty good overall. The other tool that I use is a very obvious one. Glue gun. This will remove nearly any sticker that you can think of. It is very, very effective. However, it is very viscous, but even though it is viscous, it will actually start to spread and thin out on you once it's on a surface. So you want to use a small amount. I will often use a small amount and then just carefully spread to just the areas I want with a Q-tip. What it does is it will chemically start to dissolve those adhesives, and after a short bit of time, usually give it 4 or 5 minutes, you can start wiping it away. It is oil, so you do want to use whatever tools you can to remove as much of that as possible. Paper towel first, perhaps some more IPA, until it is all gone. For the final bit of cleaning, again, Q-tips are your friends. All of these nice little ridges that are on the front of the cartridge are probably full of years of dirt, debris, and gunk. Yes, they are. So just a little bit of elbow grease can make a cartridge go from something that you pulled out of the bottom of a thrift shop bin to something that will look just a little bit better sitting on your shelf and fully functional. I'm going to take a look at the back of this. Back is not in too bad of shape. Some small scuffs right there. Again, I'm not trying to hide the fact that this is an old cartridge. There's no hiding it. There's nothing to be ashamed of that you have a cartridge that is older. You're just trying to maintain it and trying to get it back to a more presentable nature. Something about these cartridges, I'm going to reassemble this again. You'll see it's actually keyed on the sides. It may not look like it is, but the small divot right here is a key, and it will only go in one way. So if you find yourself struggling to fit it back in, take a look at the key. Because of that ridge, I know that actually can only go in one direction, and once it's in, the plastic keeps it locked into place. Take the other half of the cartridge shell. Notice these tabs that will slot into the top. And now the cartridge is assembled but not secured. Using the same game bit that you had before, put the screws back in. And then you'll be all done. Now, one final comment. You can clean your cartridges all day long, but what if you need to actually clean your console? For an NES, that is a whole nother video that I can make, and perhaps I will one day, but the simplest thing that I can suggest at first, when you are trying to get a game working on your original hardware, clean the game, but also clean the cartridge slots. And for that, back to the company 1UP card. This is their NES console cleaner, and it has a very fine abrasive material on the inside that looks like a cartridge connector. And you can actually see from when I've previously used this before, those lines are actually marks from where I have cleaned the console in the past. So this is a great way to get those consoles working again if it's just a dirty cart connector. Now, for the test. Does this work the way that I think it should? Let's find out. Now, for the final test. We have the cartridge I just cleaned, have my NES right here, along with my TV. Let's put this in. See how we did. Works like a charm. First time. So, if you enjoyed this video, please like, please subscribe. I plan on posting more retro gaming content in the nearish future. Thanks. Have a good one. Bye.